are live. Thank you so much for joining us on this special day, March 8th, to celebrate International Women's Day. I'm so happy to have like an all-female panel today to talk about all things career growth and CX advocacy and also advocating for ourselves on the way. Right? So thank you so much for joining, for making the space on your calendars. We are really excited to talk with you. And let's just jump into it because I know you all have a lot of insight. So I want to make the most out of this hour. I'm going to go and present all of you real quick. So we have Ren here, Senior Director of Customer Experience at TUSHY. We have Zoe, founder of the Inevitable Agency and VP of Retention at Audient Hearing. We have Amanda, VP of Customer Experience at Love Wellness. We have Caela, Director of Customer Experience at Jaxxon. And we have Molly, Senior Director of Retention at Shinesty. So thank you so much for joining. As you see, like these are all experts on the CX fields. So as you know, this is an AMA session. So we really want you to drop your questions, like any advice you want from this amazing woman, just like drop it in the chat. We're gonna have a roundup of like warming up questions to kick start this. So we're gonna like jump right in. Okay, awesome. To start, we're going to start with Caela. So I know that you have like some advice that you received at the beginning of your career that has been so useful for you. So tell us more about this and how have you used this advice through your career?
Yeah, I think, really for me, all my managers, professors, mentors, just kind of along the way, always the biggest thing was always stick to who you are through any job you're at. You don't want to lose yourself. And I feel like that was always a really great piece of advice because I felt like it made me feel like, okay, I can be powerful in my role no matter what I do. And so for that, I'm like, and also it was just the level of support. So going into CX, I've always wanted to be able to give that level of support to my agents on my team, anybody in, at my, our brand as well. I'm very big on being a supportive member. So I think for me, it was always just like, be true to yourself and you'll be that kind of that guiding light along the way. And, I think that's where I try to be like, okay, is this something I would really do? Or am I doing this for another reason? And I try to keep that in, every big decision I make.
That's amazing. Like, just tap into yourself and like ask yourself first, right? I got one question here. Like, there is a lot of people that is looking for a mentor out there, but how do you like, what would be your advice to find mentor or connecting with one?
Yeah, I think it's just about, approaching people and making those connections. And I think that's what's been so great, post-COVID, being able to meet more people, in this space. And, whether it's someone who directly is in the field you're in or someone who you, admire or, you feel inspired by. And I think just by starting that relationship and asking questions and, if that person is willing to mentor you, like just, I think being open and having that two-way communication is really helpful. But I don't think it always has to be someone in your direct field, because I think that there are so many other people who can mentor you and give you, the tools to be able to make it through your career. And so, for me, my mom is one of my biggest mentors. She's a nurse. She does not do never did anything in the e-commerce field. Like, it's very different. But I think a lot of her advice, it completely applies here. So I think it's, finding someone you trust and just starting those conversations and asking. So I think that's what's really great about things like this, connect with people on LinkedIn, meeting other people at, conventions through webinars and stuff, and just open up with some questions. And I think that's when you'll find, when it flows, that you might be able to find that person who can really mentor you through your career.
That's amazing. Okay, thank you so much, Caela. So we're going to go to the next question. I'll be back with you. Okay, so Molly, so I know that you wanted to talk us about some decisive moments that you had in your career. Tell us, like, how was your process there? Like, how did you came up with your decision?
Yeah. So one of the most impactful decisions that I made early on my career was making sure that I was finding that kind of just right point in my job, like in any job that I'm holding. And that's kind of like talking about, it's about neither being underwhelmed nor overwhelmed by challenges, and kind of like striking that balance between not being challenged enough and being challenged too much. So basically what happened is, like, I'm one of those people who get bored really easy if I'm not learning something new. So early on, in my career, I took on like everything you could throw at me, like everything and anything. I was like, yes, I'll do it. And yes, this led to me developing quickly and like learning a ton of new skills. It also led to me working long hours and like bringing my laptop on social events. And then that eventually led to me burning myself out. And I kind of repeated this cycle several times over and over again. And I didn't really consider that it was okay to say no, or okay to take that moment to kind of realign yourself, until I had direct reports, because I kept thinking about what I expected from them. And I wanted them to ask me for help. I wanted them to feel challenged, but like not overwhelmed. And I didn't want them to work long hours. So this kind of mindset led me to several large decisions. One of them being turning down a promotion. I realized that where I was at was not healthy. Like, I wasn't having a good work-life balance, and I had to say no, and I had to say, this is what I need in order to move to this position. And luckily, they were very receptive, and now I've moved up several positions since then. But the good thing is, the wanting to be challenged also led me to my career in CX. 2 years ago, I was director of retention, and my company was like, we need someone to oversee the CX team. And I was like, heck yeah, I want to do this. So that gave me 2 years of like learning all these amazing skills and building this amazing team that I'm super excited about.
That is amazing. I think like learning to say no is as important as all the yes that we receive, and that we receive, right? Like, these are like detours in the right direction, I feel. I really love that. I think I can totally relate on like learning to put some limits and like finding that balance. Every career has its own timing, and you like that it was not like great. You could tap into yourself and know that that was not the right time for you, and then like things lined up to keep growing in your career in that direction. That's amazing.
Oh, just real quick, I always like to think of like what I would expect from like how I would react to a situation when I'm asking somebody for something. So like kind of keeping that mentality when you have a manager or you have like any type of boss that you need something from, like think about how you would respond, and that's most likely how they would too.
Great advice. And like, I have one question here, like, how would you avoid burnout in CX?
I mean, CX is definitely really tricky. Like, our agents are dealing with our customers one-on-one, and that's super difficult, right? So I like to be really understanding if they've had a kind of a negative experience. We like to allow them to step away and kind of have that conversation and remind them that like the negative experiences are because those are the people that are speaking the loudest. Like, you are doing everything you can to help them. And then we like to have celebration corners where it's like, these are all the customers that think you're amazing. Like, your CSAT score is this, like, don't worry, you're doing a great job. So like, people might need a moment to not feel overwhelmed, or might need that reminder that like, yes, that interaction or like what is happening in this moment feels overwhelming, but it's okay to step back, take a breather, realign yourself. And if you need more, like, we have our manager is pretty amazing. She'll have like coffee time with our agents one-on-one if they need that moment to kind of just vent. I'm always available if they need to talk. So it's just making sure that like our agents feel supported, and that their emotions and feelings aren't dismissed, right? Because they're the ones dealing with our customers one-on-one, and we want to make sure that they're happy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think like once you are able to step back, you also realize how far you've gone. So that's a great place to go. Well, like, if anyone wants to add some of your thoughts, please just like feel free to jump in. Okay, let's go to the next one. So why do you find CX to be such a unique and special field in the DTC world?
I love this question. It's one of my favorites because CX is definitely unique. First, I wanted to say, Molly, we sound very similar, of like that journey. So thanks for sharing that. It's always like so nice to hear other people go through some of those challenging things. I'm going through something like that right now. It's really hard to say no when you want to help and like make sure that your team doesn't have to work. I'm the same way. I'm like, if I need to work a little bit more so that my team doesn't have to work long hours, but definitely don't want to like be burnt out or anything. So Molly, thanks for sharing that. And kind of in the same realm of those topics too, with CX being such a unique field, CX is one of the only aspects in business that touches every single part of the business cross-functionally. And I'm sure everyone on this panel has seen this, but you're in direct contact with your customers that touch marketing, that touch operations, that touch sales, and you're able to find all of these little bumps in the road with the business. And I think it's such a cool field because you get to learn how to run a business from your customer's point of view and fix all those little things that go on. And I'm just very grateful to have fallen into this career because it's not something I didn't wake up one day and was like, I want to be the owner of a CX agency, or I want to be the VP of retention. It was something that I kind of accidentally stumbled upon. And I'm really, really happy I did because I've learned so much about how to run a business, how to make people happy, how to give great experiences. But I started as an agent just answering tickets and learned all of that from just starting at such a simple place and asking questions along the way. I think it's a very unique place to be able to be very curious and ask, why does this happen? What's going on here? And you learn so much by just being curious. In CX really gives you that opportunity to do so.
That's amazing. And would you like to tell us more about how did you progress into opening an agency? Like, what's that story?
I won an award called CX Operator of the Year in 2022. And I didn't really know that there was this whole D2C community out there. I was kind of just head down doing my thing in CX. I was the customer experience manager at Chomps at the time, and I got nominated for this award and won it. And after that, people started asking if I could hop on calls for consulting and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sure, I'll hop on a call. And I realized that I had some knowledge to share. I never realized that there was so many people out there looking for mentors or just advice in customer experience. And I think I underestimated how difficult it is in our career of customer experience because of those things, it touches so many different parts of the business. And honestly, I've realized that founders get overwhelmed by customer experience. So when that started happening more and more, I realized that there was an opportunity out there to just help more businesses with their customer experience. And after the consulting calls, people started asking for implementation help, which I had to say no because I'm like, I have a full-time job. I can't also do this. So I ended up actually hiring Sierra, who is the director of operations for Inevitable Agency. And from there, we've just grown. We're about a year old now, and we've got, I think, 9 people on the team now, but it kind of just happened accidentally when I saw that people wanted the help, and I trained other people up to give the customer experience at the standards that I'm sure everyone on this panel also shares, of just making the customer as happy as possible, but in the most efficient way for the business and cost effective. So yeah, it kind of was an accident, but I'm really, really happy that it happened because now we've got a team of a bunch of badass customer experience women just affecting or having a positive impact on customer experience. So yeah, it was an accident, a happy accident.
Inevitable Agency, right? I love it. And last follow-up question, you mentioned staying curious, what will be your tips to stay curious in CX?
Always ask questions and don't ever let anyone stop you from that. I did actually have a moment one time in previous jobs that I was in customer experience, and I was asking questions. I think it was about some type of like logistics question of like, oh, this doesn't seem right. These customers keep getting this issue or whatever. And I was asking a lot of questions, and someone had told me to stay in my lane. And I was like, whoa, that like, I'm just trying to help the customers. And it really, really hurt me. And I thought that maybe like I was being too curious, but now looking back, I'll never let anyone like tell me to stay in my lane again, because being curious and asking questions of like, oh, this doesn't seem right, or like this keeps happening to customers and it's making them upset. And like, I don't know what the solution is, but if I ask questions, but I always say like, even if you don't understand something, but you see that it's negatively impacting your customer base, always get to the bottom of maybe if you don't even come to a solution for that problem, at least you understand why it's happening. And you should always ask questions if something feels off or you don't understand it.
That's great advice. Always ask questions, and definitely don't stay in your lane, right? Like in CX, I guess you need to interact with as you say, with every side of that business to understand like what's going on. Awesome. Thank you so much. So actually, I want to circle back to Caela and ask you, like, I know like we talk about in CX a lot that we have a lot of like empathy. CX needs to have like empathy and like the human connection. Like, can you talk us about a little bit about that side of like the human connection and the empathy? Why is it important in CX?
Yeah, this is such a big thing for me. I think because you're doing all this for your customers, and these are all people. You want to be able to understand their needs and kind of what they're looking for in your specific brand. And I think, in order to create a great customer experience, you need to put yourself in their shoes. So whether that's, for me, I'm like always like, I know how I want to be treated, and but everyone has different needs. And I think we have to be able to adapt to that for even the simplest things, like what kind of channels do we offer for customers to contact us? There are people who they don't want to talk to anyone. You have, AI, automation, things like that. Someone wants to talk to an actual person through a phone. You kind of adapt to those things. And it's not just all the customers, it's your team as well. And like Molly was saying, like Zoe was saying, it becomes really difficult to be able to meet all those needs all the time. And so for your team as well, you want to make sure that they feel supported and like they're able to do their best job as well. And you can't just have a little army that works nonstop all the time doing all this. You have to be there for them as well. And so I think to be able to, with customer service, you're gonna have a lot of highs and you're gonna have a lot of lows. And so you have to be able to manage that. And it gets hard, I have to say, like Molly said, like it can be very draining, and you have to find your ways to say, no, someone else, please step in. But also if you can be able to understand like that's part of this role, it just makes it so much easier to like, you accept it and you're like, I can give everything I have, to people to make this brand better and to give that great experience. And I think something like for me, like I didn't start in customer experience. Like I've always worked in that customer service retail space, but I went to school to be a historian. And what I like about history is I like people. I love learning about how people have lived, and especially how women have lived throughout, history. And so for me, it's that human connection. And so I try to keep that really close through everything I do. And so, whether, like I said, whether it's someone who does not want to speak to a single soul, they want to get their products and they want to go through that, or it's someone who like, they just literally need to talk to another person. And so I think, that's how you go through it. It's a wide spectrum of what people need, and you just got to be open to that.
I love that. And I think like talking about this, like that your background is actually in history. So I want to now go to my question for Ren, and like, let's talk about what was like, how did you arrive to CX? What was your progression, and what's like your vision? Like what is like the career path that someone that loves CX could aspire to have as well?
Yeah, great question. And I don't know if everyone has had as circuitous a path as I have towards CX, but I think it's kind of one of these jobs that a lot of us can find ourselves happy accidents that we fell into, right? Casually, coincidentally, my very first job ever when I was 16 was at a call center. And it definitely wasn't something I aspired to. It just paid, $6.75 when minimum wage was $4.25. So this is like 16-year-old dream, right? Got fired from that job because I didn't follow the script perfectly. And that informed a lot of my decisions later around speaking in your authentic voice and how do we really connect with customers. I said yeah instead of yes. That was the problem. And so, later on in life, have come back to CX in a very formal role here at TUSHY. But I think every aspect of every job I've ever had involves CX. If we think about customer experience, if you have customers, you have an experience, right? So it's everything from the website you build to the box that the product comes in to what is the paper that the product is wrapped in. Now, this is all part of the customer experience. But to think about it just on the solution, the problem and solution side, customer service, customer experience, as we call it here, also every aspect of probably every job. I was a teacher for 10 years, and a lot of that involved interfacing with parents, right? Why did my kid get 95 on this test instead of the 100? They studied so hard, And I think if you're looking at it in just an e-commerce CX format, it's easy to say, oh, you start as an agent, right? The entry level job. But it's going to pull in so many different facets of what makes us human and what makes us tick and get excited and connect with each other, from being a strong problem solver and knowing how to get solutions effectively, being a strong communicator, understanding semantics and nuance, and to lead with positivity instead of unfortunately. There's all these little things that we learn through this role. So I think, yeah, if you're young in your career and thinking about where to get started, agent, I think it's fundamental to start at that level. And then you can work your way, to be a manager and then a director and all of these things. But I think it's never losing sight of like the agent being on the floor or on the phone, talking directly to customers is, I think, the most valuable part of any business. And I think I'm sure this panel agrees that like staying in the trenches is really important, right? Like we delegate a lot of things, we learn from our teams a lot, but it never ceases to amaze me what I learn when I get on the phone with a customer. I take some time in the queue, like, oh my gosh, like, are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? Like, this is so valuable. And so it's finding that balance in, yeah, how can you get out of the weeds and enable your team to do really big things, but also understand what might seem like a small thing to them, just like a little pain point. You're like, wait, you guys have been suffering for 6 months with this, technical issue that's going on. Like, let's have this fixed right away, and knowing how to advocate for those things. So yeah, like my path at TUSHY, I started as a puru, right? I was building an online marketplace for surf adjacent lodging called Wavecation. And then COVID happened and all travel dried up. And I started at TUSHY as a puru. I thought, oh, this will be a 2-week stint till I can pay the rent and this pandemic thing is over. And here I am 4 years later. And I think it's never being too proud to understand that, like, if you like connecting with people and you like solving problems, it can be one of the most rewarding jobs. And I think if I look at my team, like, and myself, like, service is one of the things that's most rewarding to me and valuable. And I think that's what a lot of people get out of this role, of having a purpose and being able to apply that and deeply impact a business in a positive way, but also, an individual's day-to-day life. Like, oh, you solved my problem for me. And we never know what people are going through. So yeah, kind of threw a lot out there, but I think it can be a very fruitful job no matter what level. But yeah, starting at the bottom, there's a lot of growth if you're open to it.
I love that. That's so inspiring, Ren. Thanks for that. Like, just one follow-up question here. Like, you mentioned, like, in dealing with challenges in your career, right? Like when there's like a roadblock, like what advice do you have for folks out there, or like women out there, to like how to stay resilient in those moments?
Yeah, well, I think that's the great thing I've learned about humans, is that we are very resilient. And I always say through is the way. Sometimes we don't want to do the hard things, but I know my greatest learnings have come from my greatest failures or hardships. And I think, yeah, that and we've had, the last couple years have been quite challenging for lots of people for many reasons. And I think, if I take the example of TUSHY, when I joined TUSHY, it was probably the most challenging CX experience anyone could confront, right? I was living in Mexico City at the time, but in the US, there was this great toilet paper shortage. So that spurred mass adoption of bidets, but as we know, totally broken supply chains. So when I had a TUSHY, I was a longtime customer, and my husband jokingly said, as we were like, what are we going to do about our business? It was like, oh, well, I'm sure you can get a job at TUSHY as a CX agent. They're probably in a world of hurt. And I looked at their website, totally sold out. And that's how I came to work for TUSHY and stepped into the queue and was like, holy crap, this is like, backlog of thousands of tickets, no promise in sight of getting a product till July, people buying on pre-order. Like, that was a huge challenge for our business. We had the greatest thing ever happen. You have multiple $1 million sales a day. That's great, but not when you're a teensy 10-person company that's totally blindsided by this. That was a huge challenge, and like, we're able to see it through. But I think sometimes, hindsight's 2020, and I think it's the people that I find that work in CX see those things as like fun, when everything is like working smooth. It's kind of like, okay, I'm a little bored. Like, we need some real shit to work on, problems to solve. And I think it's always being able to see the glass half full when these things come up. Like, what can I learn from this situation? How can this benefit us? And, sometimes it is kind of bad news, but there's usually some positive takeaways, even if it's only learnings. But I think it's always figuring out how can you see things half full? Because frankly, a lot of our job is dealing with complaints and problems. And if you're a person that sees that as a downer, CX probably isn't for you. It's being able to see these all as opportunities of like, okay, what can I do with this hardship? How can I make this like a really fun game, story, problem to solve, and flip things on its head?
I love that. I think like switching that vision of seeing the challenge, seeing an opportunity instead of the challenge, and like following that opportunity, right? Like your idea, like what if I work for TUSHY? You went to the website, look for the job, and then like the rest of history. Sometimes you just need to follow your own ideas. Thank you so much. That was so inspiring.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, next we have Amanda, and we're going to talk about like as a context, I ask all of these women like what would be their favorite topic to talk about, and they all said like advocate for CX. So I know this is like a huge topic for everyone. We're gonna have Amanda to kick us off here. So Amanda, share with us like your top hacks to advocate for CX inside of an organization. Maybe also like share with us like what are the challenges, like why do we feel we need to advocate for CX, and how do you advocate for CX?
Yeah, so I thought about this a lot, and my top hack is like, it's one hack with a bunch of parts. So I'm someone who loves a gadget and like a workaround and like a robot to do a thing, but I was like, it's actually pretty straightforward, and there's just a couple ways you can tackle it. So my hack is make yourself known and make your team known in whatever capacity you could do that. So we'll start informally, like connect with the rest of the business informally, however you can make it work. Talk to people outside of your department. And I'm going to preface this sounds corny. I know, just bear with me. Like, go talk to people about stuff not related to work, and like find the connections you can come back to and have a conversation. Many moons ago, I worked at Casper in the early days of the bed in the box boom. And I worked in the LA office, and it was only, I think there were 4 of us, and the rest of the company was in New York, like another 100 something people. And I sent the most Slack messages out of the entire company by like a light year. I was talking to whoever would listen, right? And I think a lot of that, one, it was a little self-serving of like, I want a seat at the table. I'm 6 million miles away from everyone. You're going to know who I am. Part of that, like I made sure I had a Slack photo. Can someone put a face to my name? Like I'm not just this person on Slack that you ask a question to. I'm like a real human behind the keyboard. So little things like that, but just connecting on little tiny things or little tidbits I found interesting. And then if I saw, my coworker talking to someone, I'll just invite myself over and also join that conversation on Slack somewhere, like in a channel, or follow up with people. It sounds, again, like a little corny to be like, oh, and also me too, but it goes a really long way. At Love Wellness, we have a few Slack channels that are just for like total nonsense. So we have one for cabin fever that's just anything crazy about anything. Like it's a million gifts. It's a bunch of weird stuff. It's like weird articles, weird things, like the celeb we just saw getting coffee down the street. Like it's a little bit of everything. And then we find people are like, I also follow her. And oh my gosh, I have the same story. And I actually was right on the other side of the street. And you give people kind of this opportunity to connect on things that have nothing to do with the business or vitamins or being in an office or anything like that. Just things you can talk to people about. We also have we have a channel for just shopping racks. So if someone's like, I need a new cleanser, 25 people are like, mine's better than yours. Here's why. No, it's not. I didn't like it. I have a discount here. Who has a discount code here? Can I use a referral code? And getting people talking and actually getting feedback of like, ooh, this is why it didn't work for me. Like people show their true self through their hobbies, through their shopping recommendations really, really quickly. I'm the one person that recommends things to whoever will listen to me. I'll talk about period underwear all day long. I love it. I will also talk to anyone about acupuncture who wants to listen. I'll do a full TED talk on that as well. I love acupuncture. So I've referred like half of our company to go see my acupuncturist. It's fantastic. So just having a space to just do crazy stuff is fine. I think on a more formal level, so, you can connect on Slack a lot, and like we all probably work a version of remote or hybrid. So we don't always have the luxury of going over to someone's desk or like passing them in the kitchen or asking them what they're doing this weekend. So more formally, Love Wellness is on a hybrid schedule. So we're in the office on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday here in New York. And we do a lot of chit chat. Love Wellness is about 50 people, so nothing massive, but what I realized was there was no moment for anyone in the business to connect informally with each other than on work topics. We would be in meetings cross-functionally, but there's no space to actually talk to anyone, to get to know them, to try to build a deeper connection. So I started what we've now dubbed as the Ministry of Fun. So it's myself, it's someone from our finance team, it's our office manager, and then our head of people. And we plan just little tiny events, not these blowout things, nothing crazy that's going to cost the business $1 million or force people to go to an open bar and then be hungover tomorrow, like really little kind of mini events in office. So we did a surprise wedding shower for someone who got engaged. We did a surprise baby shower. Every year we do a bake off. We have a ton of people who bake and cook. I'm not one of them. I'm good at cleaning. I'm not good at cooking. I'm a Virgo. I love a clean house. So we did a bake-off that the entire company participates in and gets super competitive. And you get like a trophy every year, and we get there's different prizes, and just a way for people to connect and learn. Like we learned that half our office is actually gluten-free. We have 2 people with celiac. So people are like, I have to get really creative on meeting everyone's dietary needs. And then we learned that one girl in finance is like deeply allergic to tree nuts. So we have to be like very careful, and just these little details go a really long way, but you get people getting really competitive who probably wouldn't talk to each other otherwise. Everyone kind of sticks in their vacuums for work. So it gives people a chance to kind of stretch their legs. And then we also just do, like, we had an event yesterday. That was kind of our pre-celebration to International Women's Day. The whole team went bowling. That got very competitive. If you need a good competitive company sport, that is it. But for Ministry of Fun, in order for everyone to leave work early, everyone had to complete a map where you can name all 50 states as quickly as you can, and you have to get at least 80% in order to leave. And you have people who are like, oh my God, I'm running out of time, and people from other departments trying to help everyone. And then, so one, that's funny because some people are like, damn, I'm really bad at geography. Like, what happened to me? Like, I need to stay up on this. But then as we're walking to the event, people are like, Alicia, how did you know that, like, all the Midwest? And she's like, I'm from Chicago. And this girl's like, I thought you were from Florida. And she's like, no. And then we figured out, like, I went to college with our head of PR, had no idea. We lived in the same dorm, had no idea. So it gives a chance just to connect on like a fully different level, that then you can kind of come back to those things. And like, once everyone knew like where they lived or where they had family, then you're like, I'm going on vacation to Denver. Who has recommendations? And that it kind of just waterfalls for as long as you let it. So on the informal side, it's great. It's all fun and games. I think on a more serious level of like, how do we make sure everyone at CX knows, or in a business knows what CX does? Because the ugly truth is like no one knows what CX does unless you're in CX. I explained my job to my friends, and they're like, what? I'm like, okay, we'll get back to that. But I think it's making, and it's in the same vein as a lot of this, is make your team's work known. So we have all these like funny channels. We also have channels that we connect CX with different departments. So we have a channel with CX and our product team where we ask, like, we get the most rogue questions on our formulas on, is this version of folate, methyl, I don't know, it's crazy. We have scientists in our inbox all day long, and we get to talk to the product team and the manufacturing teams, and they're like, whoa, people are really, really curious. And like, what level of this can we bring to the website? What research can we do to make this a better experience? So we have a whole channel there. We have a channel with our ops team where we just have nonstop back and forth on like, what's going on with fulfillment? We're seeing crazy stuff. We're seeing SKU A swap with SKU B, and you can connect in real time instead of saying, hey, at the end of the month, we have 6,000 orders that were totally scrapped because of an error we could have caught in real time. That also gives a chance, like my whole team is in all these, so I don't have to be the one doing all of this. Like they have agency to go problem solve for the rest of the department and put their name out there. I don't need to ask the question. I don't have time to ask the question. I want them to connect with the rest of the business. So we have channels like that, kind of back of house. And then we have a social channel. So we make sure our social and community teams know everything that's happening with us. We help them answer questions in their inboxes and make sure they're not stuck, or they're not saying, hey, just go email them. Like you can meet people in the DM channel if that's what your preference is, and you'll still get an answer. So I think there is a lot of connection that way. But again, give your team the agency to run those channels and give them the confidence. Like I'm like, you tag Lindsay. Don't just throw a question in here and hope someone answers. Like tag the VP of ops and let her know this is happening. Like put that on her radar, and she's going to follow up with you. She doesn't need to follow up with me. So I think it's really important to give your team room to like let them shine, even if they're shy. It's just Slack. Everyone works together. You're not going to get in trouble. You can edit your message. It's okay. So I think there's a lot of room there. And then the two other parts are, we have a CX feedback channel, and this, everyone in the company is in here, like all department heads, CEO, our founder, Lauren, every single person is in here, and we drop in feedback that's fantastic. We get reviews that are 3 paragraphs long, some really heartfelt, some just so wild. We're like, whoa, people are so happy. But we also show the ugly side when people are like, I had an awful experience top to bottom. Let me chronicle that for you. And it asks a lot of people have a lot of questions. They're like, how did we get here for this person? What actually happened? And I think initially my team was a little afraid to drop stuff in there because Zoe, kind of what you were saying, like there was nervousness that they would get in trouble for saying something somewhere else in the business didn't go right. And no one's here to stir the pot. It's saying we have a problem, we have to address it. It fell in our lap. You guys do actually need to know. So I think at first they were scared of like, I'm tattling. I'm like, there's no tattling here. Like we're all a part of the same machine. So it's given people a lot of courage to be like, I'm going to put this out there. And then, but we share out feedback from every channel, good, bad, medium, neutral, interesting, strange. So that's a good spot for everyone to just constantly get a pulse. And then the last piece, and I'm sure for some of the participants here, you've heard me talk about this ad nauseum at this point, but for all the new people in the room, we do CX training. So everyone in the business, from the office manager to the president, has to do like 4 weeks of CX work. They have to go in our inbox. They need to talk to people. They need to actually see firsthand what the experience is when your order goes wrong, or what the experience is if you can't find what you're looking for on the website. So we kind of rotate like one person per department through every group that we've done. I think we've done 6 groups. I think we have 4 more groups to go. So like 5 or 6 people. But firsthand experience of people doing that, they're like, oh, 1, not what I expected. 2, didn't know what to expect. 3, glad I did this. And by doing that, not only they got firsthand experience of how their work somewhere else so different in the business actually looks and feels to hold, but they were also like, oh, we weren't even considering this. I didn't even know this happened here. I didn't even know you guys got this feedback. So now everyone has gone through it. They know a person to go to on CX and say, do you guys still get emails like this? Is this actually still a problem? And some of these people went through training 2 years ago. And I think the part that I maybe didn't expect, but I think has shown through as maybe the most important and valuable piece is for the people who've gone through a training, have such a respect for CX. It's night and day. And it's not that we're disrespected, but CX is this back of house, not sexy thing, but it's actually really sexy. There's so much we get to do. It's like the never ending like problem to solve, which for me is like, that's what keeps me up at night, but also gets me out of bed. But the respect people have that when they make decisions and they're part of the business, they're actually thinking, how does this impact CX? What happens if we didn't include them? What happens if we don't let them know? What happens if we change the website on a Friday night and no one knows till Monday morning? So as a business, as departments, we all work better together because we have a full picture view of where your job starts and ends. Maybe ours starts and maybe someone else's ends, but we start from there. So it's a step ladder all the way down, but that's been huge in ways, like I said, initially it was just like, I think it's a good experience because I'm biased. Everyone should do CX. It's like everyone should work in retail. They should make you do that. You used to learn how to balance a checkbook. Now you should go work on the internet for a little bit. I think there's so much to be gained that you just can't get any other way. And then once they finish their CX work, all the trainees, they shadow CX on like what their actual day-to-day looks like. And then CX shadows them. So it's full picture. Everyone gets a take and like a little bit of a better understanding of what people do. So we're kind of considering everyone full picture into how does your job impact my job, vice versa. What do you know that you don't need to know? What don't I know that I should know? And kind of gets us to all hold hands where probably otherwise we'd be in vacuums and be like, good luck. See you on the other side of this project or this campaign or whatever it's going to be.
That's amazing. I really love that program, the CX training at Love Wellness. We have something similar at Gorgias. We are all encouraged to CSM an account, to be a CSM for any account that doesn't have one. And I've done a couple of those, and it's been really great to actually understand the pain points of our customers, like the things they love, what is the things that they really appreciate. Like, I think it gives you a lot of perspective to get your in there. So yeah, I really love that. So I want like a little bit of everyone's opinion on this one. So someone dropped in the chat a question about like how to get more eyes from their leadership, right? Like how to unlock budget for CX, how to like include CX in the bigger topic. So I see you nodding. So do you want to take this one?
I love this question because it's really challenging sometimes. And I'm sure on this panel, we've dealt with this. You really have to come to leadership with good reasons of why CX should have a seat at the table. And I actually like to bring data, and that could be in a bunch of different ways. Everything's data backed, but a lot of times your leaders need data to make decisions. And a really good example and a really bad example of like a customer experience so that they can see how your agents are impacting the business in so many different ways, and bringing those examples to leaders and showing like, look, this is how your agents are saving your business. And this is like, without them, your business could fail. Or it's the longevity of your business just isn't going to be as strong. And showing those examples of really happy or really mad customers to your leadership can really help. And then also coming to your leaders with actual examples of how they can support your agents or your CX team of like, I'd like to give bonuses for X, Y, and Z if they provide a 98% CSAT or a 5-star CSAT for a week. I'd love to give a bonus for this. Or maybe even if it's just like returns prevented, I'd like to reward my team. And also, I really, really liked your advice, Amanda, about getting people to talk, because if you don't have good communication across your company and your team doesn't even know who are your agents or who are your CX leaders, then it's really hard to get a seat at the table because they don't know you, frankly. So I think that it's just like goes back to the speaking up and like being very confident too. I've noticed that the confidence behind a CX leader makes a difference, because if you're scared and you're always getting in trouble, or you're not that you're getting in trouble, but like you're dealing with the problems and maybe you're getting someone else in trouble on accident because you're revealing a mistake someone made. I really liked those examples, Amanda, that you gave, but definitely make yourself known and be confident and like speak up for your customers and your agents.
I love that. Speak up and bring data to the table. That's awesome. Well, there's another question. Ren, I'm going to pull you in for this one. I know you already kind of answered this in the chat. So the question is, we're a mid-sized CPG brand experiencing more growth, but not enough need to hire another full-time CX team leader. I would love some thoughts on how to work around this.
Yeah, as I shared in the chat, one of the MOs of TUSHY Gang, as we call ourselves, the Purus, is radical self-reliance. So, a lot of the work that our team is doing could be automated, right? And they're there because they're better than bots, right? They understand nuance, they're thoughtful, they can make better decisions. And so I think it's having strong tools, like a really valuable knowledge base where they can get all the information that they need, all of the protocols of how you handle all different scenarios. What do you do when someone requests a return outside of the window? It's situation A, B, or C. And that they are well armed with your expectations and how to carry through on those. And everyone is trained on that. So they don't have to ask you for every little approval. They don't have to ask you for every little thing. Similar to what Amanda was saying before, like, I'm sure we can all relate of being the middleman. Can you tell someone this X, Y, and it's like, no, you can tell them, and really empowering them. And I think probably a lot of customer service agents have PTSD from shitty job scenarios where they were treated like a robot that couldn't do anything. And I think I know a lot of the people that I work with are like seasoned professionals that have taught me tons of things, but you have to know to ask and give them agency and authority to make these choices. And I say to my team all the time, a bot can do this. You're here because you have heart and you can think smarter and be more clever than this. So it's providing strong tools and setting expectations, also inspecting what you expect, regular QA of tickets so you can see that your protocols are actually being executed the way that you expected to, monitoring your refund and return rate closely and seeing like, why did that spike? Are people doing things in the way that I've taught them? But it's also, being able to set these things up so that you can step away. And maybe certain things might have to pause, if you have one leader that's overseeing projects, but it shouldn't be that when you come back, there's a bunch of like return approvals that need to be done. That should be able to be executed with your team, but it's giving them more agency and having all the checks and balances to make sure that they are capacitated to do so. But it also, it comes with trust, letting go, right? I think we all can relate to this feeling of like, no one can do this like I can. I'll just do it because I'll make sure it's done exactly right. Like, and then you find your day totally occupied with those things. And it's letting go a little bit, trusting that you've trained them well, setting up a system to do that. And the way they do it might be a little bit different than the way that you did it. And that's okay because it's done. And it's also allowing your team to flourish and see a career path. And like on our team, I took on a very nascent team. It was 2 part-time teammates until COVID happened. And so since then, we've created like a CX specialist role that was a Purus that were promoted. And then there's like a manager and director and all of this. But that was something I was like really afraid of like growing the team. Like, what does this look like? But when you set it up in this way where there's more autonomy, it will start to spell out like what you need to build. Oftentimes you'll see like the cream of the crop rising to the top. And, you know, my team, some of them have been with me for 4 years. So when you give them more agency, they will stick around. And retention is a huge problem in our world because this is a stressful job. So when you give them more purpose, they want to stick around because it's exciting.
Ren, I just want to add on, and I'm just looking at the chat in here. I don't know if you guys use this at TUSHY, but we use it's called Guru as our internal knowledge base. I think their website is getguru.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best ever. You put in all your processes and then as cards in a collection, and over time it asks you to verify the cards. So your processes are always being updated, but they have a great Chrome extension. So whatever you're doing, whatever platform page, you can pull it up, type in like the piece of info you're looking for or the process you're looking to use. It's free, I think up to like 10 users, but it has been a lifesaver. And then you can share it with the entire business. So when our social team is like, we need to send these free orders to influencers, I'm like, you go do it yourself. Like you have the tools. So for anyone who needs an internal knowledge base, Guru has been, we champion them. I love them.
Great.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great rec. We have ours built on Notion, which you can use for
we
all
love
things.
Notion.
Yeah, but Guru
so good.
sounds like next level. So thank you for that.
Amazing. I love that recommendation. And okay, to finish, to close this question, I want to bring in Molly as well. Like, I know like you are also rocking your CX team with like just few agents with a smaller team. So like, how do you find that balance between, right, like automation and AI and the team, and empowering your team to take on those like most critical tasks and most important tasks, right?
In the last year, we really implemented automation into our CX, into Gorgias. And we were actually able to automate 53% of tickets. So it was a huge jump in what we were doing before. We have a team of 4 agents at the moment and 1 manager. So we're a pretty slim team, but our CSAT has gone up because those tasks that don't need that human interaction are being they're self-serving. They're being fed the correct articles, or they're being directed to the place they need to be on the site to get whatever they need done, and they're happy. Then the additional agents are there for those tickets, those like tickets that really need that human interaction or need that heart, as you were saying, Ren, to make sure that these people feel taken care of and like we're actually resolving their issues. The benefit of this is actually having fewer agents. We've been able to work with them more one-on-one, which has definitely been a benefit, not only for leadership, but for the agents as well. They're feeling like they're being heard and that they're progressing in their career instead of being kind of, just plateauing. So like I said, we're working with a really slim team. We're using Automate in the correct areas that customers are okay with using. Cause like, to be honest, I don't like talking to anyone on the phone, or I would rather deal with a robot if I can. That's me. But yeah, I think really figuring out those scenarios where you can automate the ticket versus those scenarios where you really need that human intervention. We will never get rid of our agents. We love having that human interaction as an option, but definitely also appreciate the automated platform as well.
I love it. I think the person who asked that question got a lot of advice. Okay, thank you so much. We are like almost there at the top of the hour. So I just want to close this with like a round of like CX appreciation, just like a highlight or a reason like why you love CX so much and why you advocate for it. And then we're going to close the session. Who wants to start? Let's say Caela, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think my favorite thing is just being able to connect with people, and whether that's with the customers or like we said, with CX, you touch every department. So being able to just work with everyone in their different departments is so fun. And then to be able to give all that back to the customers, that's what I really like. And it's something new every single day. And I think that's just what, really keeps it interesting.
I love that. Thank you so much, Caela. Thank you so much for joining today. Okay, Molly.
I love working on CX because I love dealing with the agents. You have to have a really certain type of personality in order to be able to build that connection with customers. So like as the director, I get to work with these agents on a daily basis, or the manager on a daily basis, and they're always so fluffy and so like joyous in like the best way. So I really love that. And I also really love how eager they are and how they want to be developed. So like having just this team has probably kept me more and more motivated to make sure that everything works well for them. So it's definitely the people.
Amazing. People person. Thank you, Molly. Zoe?
I think my favorite part is actually reducing stress for like everyone across the board, whether it's your customers, your internal team, that's like cross-functional with everyone in the business, or your agents. It's an opportunity to find those pain points of the business and pain points from the customers and really see like how can we improve that. And if you get to the bottom of some of the root issues, it reduces stress for a lot of people across the board. So that's my favorite part, is reducing the stress as best as possible.
I love that. Thank you, Zoe. And Bren?
Yeah, love what you guys are all saying and relate to it so much. I think what I enjoyed the most is the diversity of the work, that from day to day you can be doing a myriad of things, but I think the heart of what brings me back is my team and understanding like how to nurture a team. And I guess in the last couple of years, I've really felt like when you take really good care of your team, you have to be less conscientious of your customer, right? And I think it's something that a lot of companies overlook, and that's why they have high turnover rates. But treating your team the same way you would treat your customers, or even better, empowering them, giving them agency, listening to them, and understanding that they're human. We're all going through this game of life, and to be flexible. It's an interesting role that we have really clear like productivity KPIs and all these things that we can track someone and understand their performance to a T, but there's also the whole human side, right? And that's what makes my job rich and makes me come back every day, and why my bulletin board here is covered with notes from people around the world that I work with and care deeply about, but have yet to meet. And I think it's being able to parlay the same experience to them that we want for the customers. And it's all about human connection.
I love that. Treat your teams like you would treat your customer, right? I love that. Thank you, Ren. And Amanda?
Yeah, I'm on board with everyone else. I'm going to echo a lot of this. I think the people, your team is your best asset. And I think people who want to work in CX are crazy problem solvers who know a business better than anyone else. If you can think of any other team that is fully proficient in 10 different platforms that have very different functions and can do it like this, CX is that place and nowhere else. I think on that note, within CX, there's always newness on the tech side. So we get the sexy stuff. Like that is the sexy part. We get the new tech. I look at our ops team and they're on this like old platform that looks like it runs on Windows 95 and like it'll never change because it can't. And I'm like, we have a shiny new toy to play with this week and like we're going to go crazy with it. But so that's, I think, an added bonus. But I think it's the people who want to figure out what's going on. They want to make it the best they can be. And then to what Zoe was saying, at every organization I've worked at, from Hulu to Casper to Thinks to Love Wellness, CX is the only team that gets poached internally across the entire business. And that doesn't happen from any other department because they're so well knowledgeable across every single facet and have so much to add. And I think that's something you guys should remind yourself of. Like, you really are the business experts and you really can't poach internally anywhere else from CX. And they're also the best and smartest employees. Like, they get it all. So people, just fantastic industry organization to exist in. So even when people tell you it's unsexy, it's extremely sexy. Remind them it's very sexy and it's very fun.
CX is sexy, 100%.
It is sexy.
The conclusion of our panel. I love that so much. Thank you all for joining and setting this time to chat. So that's all. Thank you so much. And see you all in the next CX All-Star. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.